Some children grow up in houses where words are weapons, so they learn to stay quiet. Others grow up in houses where silence is the only language spoken, and they inherit it like a birthright. These are the children who learn that speaking invites danger, that expressing needs brings punishment, that existing loudly means existing wrong. They grew up tiptoeing through their own lives, swallowing feelings until swallowing became reflex. Their silence was not peace, it was survival. And now, years later, they carry that silence in their throats like a stone. They have so much to say and no memory of how to say it. This is the story of what happens when a child is taught that their voice is a burden too heavy for the world to hold. There are homes where silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of fear, where a child learns, before they learn anything else, that their voice is conditional, that laughter can shatter a fragile peace, that questions are met with irritation, that crying summons anger or coldness or nothing at all, and somehow nothing feels the worst. In these houses, silence is a rule no one has to say out loud. It is taught through sharp glances when a child speaks too much, through the heaviness that fills the air when someone's mood is bad and everyone else must adjust, through dinners eaten without conversation, where the scrape of a fork feels like an intrusion, through the learned understanding that some feelings, most feelings, are not welcome here. The child in this house becomes a student of stillness. They learn to move quietly through rooms, to gauge the emotional temperature before entering, to make themselves small enough that their presence does not disturb the delicate, unspoken order. They learn that their thoughts are interruptions, that their needs are inconveniences, that the safest version of themselves is the one that makes no noise, and so they stop speaking. Not all at once, but slowly, like a dimming light. They stop sharing what happened at school, stop asking for help with things that confuse them, stop saying when something hurts. They fold their words into themselves, tuck their feelings into places no one can see, and learn to live in the space between expression and erasure. This silence is not chosen. It is survival dressed as obedience, a way of staying safe in an environment where being heard feels dangerous. And the tragedy is not just that they stopped speaking. It is that they began to believe they had nothing worth saying. The house taught them that silence was the price of belonging, and they paid it without knowing they had a choice. Silence is not always born from cruelty. Sometimes it is born from fear, from parents who themselves were raised in silence and know no other way, from households where anger is a storm that arrives without warning, and the only way to survive is to become invisible until it passes, from homes where one person's emotions consume all the oxygen and everyone else learns to breathe quietly, carefully, just enough to stay alive. Some children were silenced through rage. A parent whose voice was always louder, whose words were weapons, whose frustration turned ordinary conversations into battlegrounds. The child learned quickly. Do not argue, do not explain, do not defend. Compliance is safer than truth. Silence is safer than self. Other children were silenced through coldness. A parent who withdrew at the first sign of need, who met tears with impatience, excitement with disinterest, fear with dismissal. The child learned that their emotions were burdens, inconveniences, proof that they were too much. So they stopped showing them. They became experts at fine, at okay, at nothing's wrong. And then there were the children silenced by chaos. Homes where addiction, mental illness, or violence created an environment so unstable that the only way to survive was to stay unnoticed. These children learned that silence kept them safe, that blending into walls, into routines, into the background meant they would not become the target, the problem, the reason everything fell apart. The silence was never about them being quiet by nature. It was about the world around them being too loud, too volatile, too fragile to hold their voice. And so they did what children do when the environment demands it. They adapted. They became silent, not because they had nothing to say, but because saying anything felt like standing in the middle of a road waiting to be hit. Silence became safety, and safety for a long time became their identity. When a child is repeatedly silenced, the body learns to hold language differently. Neuroscience shows us that self-expression is not just emotional, it is physiological. The vagus nerve, which runs from the brainstem through the throat and into the body, is responsible for regulating social engagement, vocal tone, and the feeling of safety in connection. When a child is punished, dismissed, or ignored for speaking, this nerve learns that expressing is dangerous. The throat tightens. The voice becomes smaller, thinner, easier to swallow back down. Over time, the neural pathways associated with self-expression weaken. The parts of the brain responsible for articulating needs, naming emotions, and asserting boundaries receive less and less use. And what is not practiced becomes difficult to access. This is not metaphor. This is biology. The child who grows up in silence develops a nervous system that equates speaking with threat. Their body remembers every time their voice was met with punishment, rejection, or emptiness. And so the body, trying to protect them, begins to shut the voice down before it even emerges. They grow into adults who struggle to speak in moments that matter, whose throats close when they try to say something vulnerable, who rehearse sentences in their head 100 times but cannot push them past their lips, who watch others express themselves freely and wonder why it feels for them like moving through concrete. Attachment theory tells us that children need to be heard to develop a secure sense of self. When their expressions are met with attunement, when a parent mirrors their emotions, validates their experiences, engages with their words, they learn that their inner world is real, valuable, worthy of space. But when their words disappear into silence, when no one responds or cares or even seems to notice, the child internalizes a different lesson, that what is inside them does not matter, and so they stop trying to bring it out. The silence that began as survival becomes identity. They do not think of themselves as silenced. They think of themselves as someone who has nothing important to say. The wound becomes invisible even to them, but the body holds it in the tightness of the jaw, the shallow breath, the words that live forever on the edge of the tongue, waiting for permission that never comes. The silent child becomes the adult who apologizes before they speak, who begins every sentence with, "I don't know if this makes sense. This might be stupid," or "Sorry, I just." They have learned to preemptively minimize their words, to make themselves smaller before anyone else can. Because deep down, they still believe that speaking is an imposition. They are the ones who listen endlessly in conversations but rarely share, who carry the emotional labor of every relationship, absorbing everyone else's feelings while revealing none of their own, who are known as the supportive friend, the patient partner, the one who always understands, because understanding is safer than being understood. In moments of conflict, they freeze. Their mind fills with things they need to say, boundaries they need to set, truths they need to speak, feelings they need to express, but the words will not come. Their throat tightens, their chest constricts. The years of conditioning rise up like a wall, and behind it, their voice dissolves into silence. And later, alone, they replay the moment. They rehearse what they should have said. They feel the frustration of swallowing their truth again. They berate themselves for being weak, for being voiceless, for still carrying a fear that no longer makes logical sense. But logic does not live in the body. Survival does. They attract relationships that mirror the original wound. Partners who talk over them. Friends who do not ask how they are. Environments where their silence is convenient, where their lack of needs makes them easy to love. And because this dynamic feels familiar, they mistake it for connection. They do not realize they are recreating the same conditions that taught them to disappear. The war is not with others anymore. It is with themselves. They have become their own silencer, the critical voice in their head that says, "No one wants to hear this. You're being dramatic. Just let it go." The part of them that shuts down vulnerability before it has a chance to be rejected. The internalized belief that their voice, their needs, Their truth are burdens the world should not have to carry. The child who was silenced becomes the adult who silences themselves. And the cruelest part is that they do it so automatically, they do not even notice it happening. And then, one day, the silence becomes unbearable. It does not break loudly. It breaks the way a dam breaks, slowly at first. A crack, a leak, a pressure that has been building for so long that holding it back is no longer possible. Maybe it happens in a relationship where someone keeps asking, "What do you need? What do you feel?" And for the first time, the question does not feel like a trap. Maybe it happens in therapy, where a trained presence holds space for the words that have never had a place to land. Maybe it happens alone, in a moment of rage or grief, so overwhelming that the silence cannot contain it anymore. Or maybe it happens quietly, a whisper to themselves in the mirror, "I cannot keep living like this." The breaking is not beautiful, it is messy, it is terrifying. Because for someone who has survived by staying silent, speaking feels like exposure, like standing naked in a room full of people, like dismantling the only protection they have ever known. The first words that come out are shaky, imperfect, halting. They might cry while saying them. They might apologize even as they speak. They might feel guilt, shame, fear, all the old emotions that taught them silence was safer. But underneath all of that, there is something else. Relief. The kind of relief that comes from finally letting out what has been held in for decades. From saying the thing they were never allowed to say. From hearing their own voice, trembling and raw, and realizing it did not destroy them. That the world did not end. That the person listening did not leave. This is not a single moment. It is the first of many. A crack in the foundation of silence that will require years of work to widen. But it is a beginning. A recognition that the silence was never who they were. It was what was done to them. And that somewhere beneath the layers of conditioning and fear, their voice still exists. Quiet, maybe. Uncertain, yes. But alive and waiting. Learning to speak after a lifetime of silence is not about becoming loud. It is about learning that your words are allowed to exist, that your needs do not make you a burden, that the feelings you have spent years swallowing are real and valid and deserving of space. This learning happens in small, sacred moments, in therapy sessions where they practice saying, "I feel," without apologizing. In journal pages where they write the truths they cannot yet say out loud. In relationships where they test the waters, sharing something small, something true, and watching to see if the person stays. It happens in their body too. They learn to notice when their throat tightens, when their breath shallows, when the old survival response kicks in and tries to shut them down. And instead of obeying it, they pause, they breathe, they remind themselves, "I am safe now. Speaking will not destroy me." They learn to start small, not with the big, heavy truths. Those will come later, but with the small ones. "I would prefer this. I don't like that. Can we talk about something that's bothering me?" Each sentence a rebellion against the silence. Each word proof that they are reclaiming what was taken. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, the voice begins to return. Not all at once, not without setbacks. There will be days when the old patterns resurface, when they go silent again, when the fear feels bigger than the desire to be heard. But now they notice. They see the silence for what it is, a coping mechanism, not a truth. They begin to seek environments that welcome their voice, people who ask questions and wait for answers, spaces where they are not punished for having needs, relationships built on mutual expression, not one-sided listening. They learn to leave situations where their silence is still expected, still preferred, still the price of belonging. They learn that healing is not about fixing what is broken. It is about building what was never built, the neural pathways of self-expression, the belief that their words matter, the trust that they can speak and still be safe. And in that rebuilding, they discover something unexpected, that their voice was never gone. It was just waiting for permission. There is a voice inside you that has been waiting your entire life to be heard. It is not the voice you use to make others comfortable, not the voice that says what people want to hear, or the voice that apologizes for existing. It is the voice underneath all of that, the one that knows what you feel, what you need, what you have always been too afraid to say. That voice is still there, even after years of silence, even after all the times you swallowed your words, your anger, your sadness, your truth, even after you learned to make yourself small, to fade into the background, to survive by staying quiet. The voice remains. It has been speaking to you all along, in the tightness of your throat, when you hold back tears, in the sentences you rehearse in your head but never say out loud, in the moments when you scream internally but stay silent externally, in the dreams where you finally tell someone how you really feel, and you wake up with your heart racing. Your voice has never stopped trying, and now, maybe for the first time, you are learning to let it out. Not perfectly, not all at once, but in small, brave increments, in whispers that become sentences, in sentences that become conversations, in conversations that become the foundation of a life where you no longer have to disappear to be safe. You are learning that silence was survival, but speaking is living. That the child who had to stay quiet did so to protect you. And now, as an adult, you have the chance to protect them differently, not by hiding, but by letting them finally be heard. This does not mean you will always be loud. Some silences are chosen, some quiet is peace. Healing is not about filling every space with words. It is about having the choice, about knowing that when you do speak, your voice will not be met with punishment or dismissal or the emptiness that taught you to stop trying. You carry the child who grew up in silence, and you also carry the adult who is learning to speak. Both are part of you. Both deserve compassion, the one who stayed quiet to survive, and the one who is now finding the courage to exist out loud. Your voice is not a burden. It never was. It is the sound of your truth, and the world, your world, has always needed to hear it.